Right, welcome back everybody. Won't you find a seat? There are a couple of people still moseying up after lunch. But I hope you had a good lunch. I thought just as well the plates were smaller, because I thought a full plate of that delicious curry was going to knock me out. Yeah, it was delicious. So thank you to the hospitality team for that. I was encouraged to encourage you. Downstairs they say, bling your bag. So you'll find you've got your bags in the one corner. They've got a couple of little blinging goodies that you can add to your bag to make sure that it says more about you in particular. All right. So I was reminded, Maurisa and I had a chat. And during, I think it was Peter's introduction this morning, he asked people to share their names, maybe where they're from, maybe what their names mean. And we had such giggles because one of the friends, or one of our participants says she has no idea, her parents don't know why she was given her name. And the other one was a lady, and she was named after a gentleman character on television at that time. And my name is Anne or Annie. And at school, I found out that I was named after people that my mom really liked. And when I tried to find out what it means, Anne means grace. And when I was little, I really didn't know what grace meant. We said grace before meals, so I thought that wasn't really anything particular to be named after. The worst was that my best friend's name was Roseanne. And I was jealous because she was the rose of grace, and I was just Grace. Anyway, needless to say. The next speaker the next host or the next moderator I'd like to welcome up is Maurisa, and she's going to introduce us to our speakers. Maurisa, and before you start, I'd like you to share maybe the origins of your name. But as she comes up, I'd like to tell you a bit more about Maurisa Moloto. Maurisa is described as a social entrepreneur and a change activist, and she focuses on the big Jedi, J standing for justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion. And her work spans across education, community development, and well-being. And I love the way she calls herself a pracademic, where she acts as an intermediary between multiple ecosystems and stakeholders in systems change. I love it. One of the descriptions of her on her LinkedIn says, a people-centered approach, one who focuses on the positives, warm and fun, and determined to bring about a positive change in society. She's married to Thabo, and they have 2 beautiful daughters. So Maurisa, welcome. We look forward to hearing what you and your team have to say.
Thank you, Annie. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Thank you. Like Annie mentioned, yeah, the bowls were small, so you guys are not going to fall asleep. And in honoring Phumla's comment, I greet you in the name of all those who built the land on which we currently stand. So I come as one, but I stand as 10,000, as Maya's poem says. My name, Annie, so as Tiego's parents were waiting for the first boy, I was supposed to be the boy. I'm second born, so I got 2 male names, Maurice and Jan. So Maurisa, Jane are my full names, and then guess what? They had a boy after me, and he got no names from the family. But yeah, I also wanted to greet you in, as Phumla mentioned about those who built the land before us, Oma Katrina Esu. Does anybody know Oma Katrina? Oma Katrina is also one of our elders that has the indigenous knowledge of the Tlu, I can't say it, Tlu language. And so I'm going to greet you in all my home languages. My mother's language, good afternoon. My father's language, goeiemiddag. My husband's language, dumela. And then in Oma Katrina, I can't say it, so this is part of Phumla's message that I actually can't pronounce. I'm learning every week. One of my Khoi friends are sending me a new language or a new word or phrase. But I wanted to actually present myself not only on the elders that I have come before, but also an artifact. So I've brought my tea. People that know me here know what's my favorite beverage. tea, any type of tea. And so one of my work besties bought me pinotage rooibos. And so pinotage, yes, best of all the worlds. So pinotage is the only grape created here. So it's a mixture of, let me get it right, Pinot Noir. Yes, we know Pinot Noir, and then Hermitage. And so Pinotage is a grape created here in Stellenbosch, Cape Winelands. If you're going on the tour tomorrow, maybe you'll see a few of that. And then rooibos is definitely fynbos that only grows in South Africa as well. And so my homie knew me really well to buy me this loose leaf tea. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you also to stand up and join me. Not in tea, but I want you to think about our African heritage is very rich about tea ceremonies, coffee ceremonies. So I want you to turn to the person behind or in front of you and then just start a conversation for 5 minutes just about your tea or your coffee drinking ritual or ceremony and what makes you authentically relevant in that context. You have 1 more minute so you can wrap up your tea, coffee conversations. Please thank your gracious host for sharing with you, and you may grab your seats. So before I ask some maybe 1 or 2 reflections, as you would have known by my name, Maurisa, Yana, Moloto, there's a little bit of French in there, a little bit of Dutch in there, a little bit of Sotho, and Khoisan, obviously. But just like me and my tea, very much mixed masalas, we call that spices all mixed together. That's really the intention we want to set about this fireside chat today. So does anybody want to share about their tea or coffee rituals, or you learn something new about somebody's drinking ceremonies? Tea or coffee beverages, those types of ceremonies? Anyone want to share anything? Yes. Can we get a mic?
Thank you. I'm vertically challenged, so I come here for all of you to see me. Damaris Kale is my name, from Kenya. And I've learned one thing. When she prepares tea or coffee, she doesn't do it for herself. She has to do it for other people as well. Then, me and my other East African counterpart from Tanzania, we have the slogan, every time is tea time. And we must always keep a kettle of tea by the fireplace.
Yes.
So any guest coming in, the first welcome is a cup of tea.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've really set me up for success, because I would like to welcome my elders, Mugendi and Anirban, up to the stage for our fireside chat, on which they can partake in some of my tea. So please come up. Can we give them a warm round of applause? Yes. Anyway. Yes. So we decided to do intros a little bit differently today because it's a fireside chat. Occupational health and safety did not allow us to have a fire. Everyone say, "Aww." But we are going to engage in conversations, and we want you to use your journal that you've gotten to just any provocations, any questions, any insights that you have, any ahas, any curiosities, please do jot it down. We'll explain a little bit later on the process that you'll go on when you leave this space. But our introductions today are really going to be place-based, as I introduced myself in a tea. Pinotage rooibos, how very appropriate. I've asked Mugendi and Anirban to bring an artifact on which to introduce themselves and to position themselves not only on the platform. You know, we can always say the things before and after our names and our academics, but we really wanted to set the intention of how would you like to show up in this space today. So over to you. Who would like to go first? Mugendi.
Thanks, Maurisa, and good afternoon, everyone. And hamjambo.
Jambo.
Thank you very much. That's for those who speak Swahili. It's just a greeting again. I have an artifact, and recently I've been promoted. Actually, it's the most impressive and most existentially uplifting promotion I could have imagined. I'm 30 days old as a grandfather.
Woo!
And little...
Awesome, lovely.
Yeah, so our little granddaughter is named Nasya, and Nasya means God's miracle.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you beat that? I should have gone first. Okay, good afternoon. Lovely to be here, and thank you, Maurisa, for that introduction. So, my name is Anirban, and so namaskar from India, for those of you who get it. We have variants, very different variants of that, but they all mean the same thing, greeting, good health. And I come from Bangalore in south of India, known for two things. It is the technology capital of the world and the traffic capital of India. We do not measure anything in distance, we measure everything in time. And that is the way we are in India. Everything is measured in time. So I actually am compliant because Maurisa has been beating me up, getting after fact. So all the way from India, I've got you this.
Wow.
The elephant. Now, when you think of an elephant, what comes to your mind? I mean, I'm in a continent of elephants, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're the only other place in the world that has an elephant, still, in the wild, that is, of course. But so when you think of elephants, what comes to you? Sorry? Okay, absolutely. What else? Ears, yes. Ears, yes. Yeah, big ears for listening. Yeah, absolutely. So, so the Indian elephant is a variant of the African one. This is much smaller in size, far easier to domesticate, and very integrated to Indian culture. If you go back and look at our ancient temples and our heritage artifacts, you will find that the elephant has been very integral to the way the Indian systems have operated as a beast of burden, but also where the kings traveled on and all of that. So, however, the elephant is also extremely endangered in India today because of habitat loss, because of man-animal conflicts, and it's very common to find the elephant entering villages, chased out. So the elephant to me is exactly like India. We say that, the beauty of India is that whatever you believe, the opposite is also true. And so we are, as another friend of mine says, we equally disappoint the optimist and the pessimist. Both, I think, work. So I think this is the animal where it's venerated as a god. Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, is the god of prosperity, but it's also endangered because of human-animal conflicts. And I think it kind of shows up in the way India is today trying to carve its way out with tradition and modernity, conflicts that come from it. So that's my artifact.
Thank you. Can we give them a round of applause? So, because it's a fireside chat, some people identify as the fire starters, and I thought we haven't started the fire, we're just keeping the fire going. And you'll see by the image, it goes with the African proverb, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. And so I just wanted to bring that question about, global south, and we've always been kind of a lion in somebody else's story. So if you had to go back to remembering, because we're going to be looking at, remembering, surfacing, and celebrating the global south perspective. If you had to look at remembering and you think of your own lion stories, what would you like to start off with remembering in this space? Mugendi?
Thank you. Maybe I'd start by saying Mugendi as a name means a traveler. And the one thing that I can do now in reflection is to just synthesize all the experiences I've had. Had the privilege of being in a few places, and everything that I see is part of my life journey and therefore my experience. And I just wanted to say maybe two very quick things. One, the lion that you see on the screen is an Indian lion. You can tell from the hairstyle. And then secondly, we now know who's the elephant in the room.
Okay. I'm waiting for more.
More wisdom.
Okay, thank you for all the animal analogies, and I'll take that. Thank you so much, Mugendi. That's a great question. I think, when you grow up in our part of the world, particularly in crowded cities and, where often enough things don't seem to be working. We heard about human-centeredness of design and all of that, and at least for me, a lot of times the conversation was that how on earth did we design it this way? Or what were we even thinking? And I think it's very interesting simply because when you see things not working, it kind of inspires you to think, what is the alternative? What could have been the alternative? And then you travel and you see the hunters, and you start thinking of the lion or the elephant. And I think there is an opportunity that one sees. And that opportunity is also about framing the problem statement right, understanding that we are, particularly in my part of the world, which we are about 1.5 billion people, and we need to really, really go to the roots and understanding why did we arrive where we have arrived, how did we get here. And I think from childhood, I think those are the inspirations. I think I'm inspired by things that don't work. And our world is full of those things.
I love that. And I'm just mindful as you're mentioning the things from being a traveler to remembering things in our childhood. If you are inspired or thinking of your own process now or your own lived experience, please write those questions down. Use it as a reflection, not only to share maybe later on, but maybe to take it back to your team, take it back to your families, take it back to maybe building a new tool. And so on that, I want to, another lion photo. Mugendi, I'm not as photographic as you taking, because I know Mugendi likes to bring his own photos.
That's the lion's wife.
Taking your own photos, these ones are not from my camera, but they are from one of my favorite safaris. So if we had to look at this as a proverb and looking at a river that forgets its source will dry up. And in this picture, it's obviously one of the rivers that are drying up in the safari. But if we had to remember, and not just thinking about work, but tell us about a story, not necessarily a concept or a project, even if it had to be a person, a place, or an everyday practice from your childhood or your community or just the lived experience where you realize now that actually you were learning about design, even though it was not called that.
Actually, thanks again, Maurisa. The lesson was learned actually outside of the continent. I had a chance to be in the subcontinent of India for 2 years, and there was an expression I constantly heard among the Indians, chalta hai. And I used to wonder, what does this mean? And thanks for explaining about the pessimist, optimist. Because there's an Indian reaction that confused me for about 1 year, because they do something like this. So it's neither yes nor no. So now I know where that comes from. So chalta hai is an expression that I would roughly translate into English as will do, like the make a plan kind of attitude. And because of that experience, I went back to Africa with this question, like, what can we make do with? Since Africa doesn't have a lot of money, what does it have? And the question to that, not very rhetoric question, the answer is we have a lot of humanity. We have, and I don't mean humanity merely from the number of people, but the ethos of Ubuntu. And so I started this journey then of trying to unpack what role Ubuntu plays in design and vice versa. And that has been an exciting journey. Richard here and most of the team here at the D School have been part of that conversation. And congratulations, by the way. This is a huge milestone. And I'm happy to be here. Yeah, so that idea of participation, inclusiveness, empathy, which is core to the idea of design thinking, is comes standard in the concept of, or the ethos of Ubuntu. And that has been my life journey, and I'm still learning. I was telling Jody that incurably inquisitive, because I learn from everyone and everything. And as I'm here, I've got the bag that Annie was talking about. I need a second bag because I've learned so much already, even from Pumla and others. So that is my journey. Just be constantly open to learning from different situations, and don't be shy to bring your lived experience as part of the understanding. That is your unique contribution to humanity.
Amazing. Thank you. Anirban?
So, I would say I enjoy being an outsider. I don't have a background in design or design thinking. I spent the first 16 years of my career in marketing, working with companies, building brands, building loyalty, building communication strategies all over the world. Some of the best credit card companies or insurance products or even Big Four consulting, I've sold it all. And I think, to go back to your question, the outsider's perspective to me has been very important, because I think, you know, there, on the registration form, there was this thing about your expertise level. I've practiced design thinking for 15 years. I gave myself a 1. Because I honestly think that I'm realizing how little I know in the conversations, particularly in my current work with indigenous communities and their design practices. And I think that outsider perspective helps me, again, getting in, because I really love to go back to Mugendi's point, learn, because when you work in marketing, you think of your user or your customer, but you don't think of her as a human. And then you get into a perspective of understanding that there is a human behind that. There are motivations behind decisions, desires, needs, interests, etc., that we keep talking about. And then you think, yeah, but then it's very anthropocentric in our way. I mean, we look at the planet as something for extraction. We live for ourselves. And then you get into the conversations around the ecosystem, around the environment. Then you land up on that, the word that has been done to death, sustainability. The most useless word, in my opinion. Because sustainability to me means sustaining. We can't sustain. We have to regenerate. Sustaining at this rate is going to kill us, as we're seeing. So I think every day you learn, every day, and all of this is, none of this is design. I think my approach is that experiencing, discovering, and listening has taught me that, you know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot more to do. And I'm very happy, absolutely, Richard, Yuli, I mean, I've been a GDTA member since 2020, never became active since last year. And we opened the India chapter last year, and Yuli was there for the inauguration, and it was really been amazing, the collaboration we are seeing. This room is so full of energy. I mean, I think Africa is the future. 65% of your population is below 25. This is what, in Indian context, we used to say demographic dividend. But we used to say that 20 years ago. And I do believe that Africa can learn a lot from India in terms of what not to do, and how development can truly be inclusive, regenerative, resilient, and responsible. And I think we can really win with that. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to shift on from remembering to surfacing. And maybe it could be resurfacing, not just surfacing, as we've heard throughout the day. And I'm thinking of what Richard said in the beginning about what Africa can contribute to global design thinking, whether it's research, practice, pedagogy. So in this image, I thought it represented the proverb, wisdom is like fire. People take it from others. So if we had to think of wisdom like fire and your roles, particularly as educators or facilitators or transferring that knowledge, can you share a moment where maybe something shifted in the way you facilitated, the way you do teaching and learning, or how you used your own or other language, contexts, songs, just to embed that type of learning in education, and then how that maybe changed the direction of your work, if you had to think about teaching and learning, pedagogy, transferring knowledge.
Okay. I think I subscribe to the dialogic approach to learning. I believe that the learner, because it's simply a role in this engagement, has knowledge, opinions, and thoughts that actually can inspire even the so-called teacher. There's an African proverb that says that those born on top of an anthill take a shorter time to mature. If you look at the current generation, because we're born on top of an anthill that is digital, they are far superior in their understanding of that ecosystem and landscape than we are. So it helps to have a reverse mentor, and I have a couple of them, young people who mentor me in certain things that affect them, like the famous Gen Zs from Kenya, which our friends in Tanzania are a bit wary of at present. But there's things that they know, and they're native to those things, that I learn from. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, said that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. He also adds, and when the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears. So for me, the greatest joy, and I have a few young people I've had the chance, these two young ladies were my students at one time, Joyce and Amolo, Rail over there, Etienne, and many others. And I've learned something from each of them. And now they've become friends. They're no longer, the relationship changes from that of being the teacher to being a co-creator of knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anirban.
So, confession, I've just learned teaching, and I'm still learning. Till probably a year and a half ago, I've never taken a serious class. I mean, I used to be called in as a kind of a visiting faculty speaker kind of a thing, but teaching a class was never something I've done. So I think when you're in, but again, for the last 16 years, 20 years actually, I've been leading a corporate learning and development organization. And we are, by virtue of our presence and size, we're among the biggest in the world when it does design thinking. 100 plus clients in 18 countries. But there the equations are very different. Your outputs and outcomes are very different vis-a-vis a student who's coming with curiosity to learn and know. And I think one of the things that I'm discovering is, again, in all humility, is the surprising questions students can ask you, which unfortunately CEOs or senior vice presidents never do, because of probably lack of, what do I call it, filter? Lack of fear. And I particularly love that about younger generations of students, because we weren't like that. When I was a student back in school 35, 40 years ago, I don't think I would stand up and ask a professor the kind of questions students ask today. And I am both impressed, inspired, and scared. Okay, because I realize I'm never really fully prepared. But I think one of the things that has worked because of the professional side of my work is that I'm also constantly challenged by some of the smartest engineers and designers and finance folks. So it's perfectly okay to say I don't know. And I'll find out. And often enough, these have led to beautiful conversations, beautiful partnerships, collaborations, and I've really learned a lot from them. So I think, I love being surprised in my classes. Again, compared to all of you, I have taken maybe less than, 5-10% of classes in my life. I intend to do more of that. But I think I'm learning from that. I think, as the song went, the kids are all right. So I think they really, really impressed me. And I'm happy with the way things are going.
And we're happy to have you share that wisdom with us. So, if wisdom is like a baobab tree and no one person can embrace it, if we had to think of the Global South and what Global South is doing in terms of design intelligence or how we're quietly influencing the conversations, as Richard spoke about earlier in the opening. Yeah, how do you think we are doing that or should be doing that in terms of embracing the wisdom, not only one person, one narrative, one perspective, whether quietly or not, and things that maybe are unseen or not documented. Speak a little bit about that as embracing wisdom from a global South perspective.
Thanks. There's two proverbs come to mind. The first is that a razor may be sharper than an axe, but it cannot cut wood. It talks to us about appropriateness and recognizing that not every tool fits a specific challenge or is not the appropriate response to a challenge. And often that comes through when I speak of the second proverb, that a blacksmith in one village is a blacksmith's apprentice in another. And I have friends from Ghana, Ralitza and Felix, and my intellectual great-grandsons, the twins, somewhere in here. Yeah, Gordon as well is here. And so from the people of Ghana, the Ashanti Kingdom has bequeathed us a priceless legacy, not just the Adinkra symbols, which are beautiful and powerful. And essentially, that is what explains the asterisk in the Africa with the K. That's a symbol for creativity from the spider's web that comes from the community I've referenced. So there's so much wisdom and knowledge that can be found right across the continent and beyond. And often some of the things we discuss may sound esoteric or unique because of the languaging, like the word Ubuntu, which has a Nguni root. But when you unpack it, what you'd call Ubuntu in isiZulu is Utu in Swahili, Unhu in Shona and other languages. So there are different expressions. So the openness to the possibility that there is no monopoly of knowledge from any one community, and that in the interaction with the others, you actually learn more. And personally, this is the exciting bit of why I like forums like this, because you leave with something more than you came with, and hopefully you also bequeath something into the commonwealth. And I think that should be our attitude. You talked about humility at some point when you were responding earlier. So humility, for me, empathy, openness, those are attributes that will serve us well as human beings.
So this is a question that goes in different directions. So I'll try to quickly answer it from my context. I think, as I said, for the longest period of time, I looked at innovation. I've been an innovation consultant for 23 years now, from a certain framework. And I think it served us well if the world is a very structured place. But when you think of the global south, when you think of the kinds of places we come from, we live in the middle of the VUCA world every day. So I'll just give you an example. I've been working with one of my GDTA colleagues in Lebanon recently, and we are doing this program it's an elective course on what I do, regenerative design with indigenous inspirations, etc. And between designing the syllabus and taking the classes, a war broke out. And my students, many of them have been displaced, and they are taking classes from very poor internet connection. I don't get to see them. Yet they study, yet they submit their proposals, and I am absolutely blown away by that resilience. Why I say this is because these are the kind of conflicts in the global south that we face. And I think the challenge is, when I started doing design thinking back in 2011 till about 2019, following a very structured step-by-step process has limitations. Because while we say that, it's iterative, you go back, but do we really get to do it? Where you have time-bound, time-boxed processes, you come up with a prototype, throw it out in the market, and you're done. And I think therefore, the inspiration is, and Ubuntu is a term that I'd learned before, but Janice reintroduced it to me last year in Turkey. And if you think of it, in Sanskrit, we have something called Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, may all be happy. You go to Latin America, you have Bien Vivir. There's a principle from, the first American, the Native Americans that I work with. It's called the 7 Generations Principle, which is a workshop that I run. It's about designing for invisible stakeholders. And I'm hoping to run it next week here. It's about if you're designing for the next 7 generations, and they all played a role in giving you feedback, even 150 years later, what would your design today look like? What would change? I think one of the things that working with indigenous communities is teaching me is that complexity. You work with less, you work with constraints, but you do no harm. You have the ecosystem in mind, you have the community in mind, you have the family in mind. And I think somewhere in our race to build products, we're forgetting those. And I work with the corporate space more, so it's a great thing for me to keep the global South perspective and bring people back to that principle. That think ahead, be responsible.
I love that. I think as we prepare for questions, also just mindful that if there are questions from the online place, to bring that into the room. But as we transition, I would like a one-liner, and we know, Mugendi, you're great at those one-liners.
Yes.
But when you educate a person, you plant a seed. When you educate a community, you plant a forest. So what is a Global South design practice or attitude that you want everyone here to remember and or protect? So what is one Global South design practice or attitude you want everyone here to remember and or protect?
I think I'll pick up on the responsibility bit. And the African proverb that has become globalized when people speak about many of these conversations is that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And I'd like to add, even the future, we have actually borrowed it from our children. So we need to be responsible so that when we hand back this mantle in some distant future, or not so distant even, we have no shame, but feel that we have been responsible citizens in our own respect.
Thank you. Anirban?
Thank you. I mean, that's grandfatherly wisdom. How can I be?
Grandfatherly wisdom.
How can I be? But adding to that, I think I'd just add that, yes, responsibility, key, but also keeping in mind that whatever we are building must be resilient. The world is dying under the load of waste, products that we don't use. I mean, we are designing for, what do you call that? What your iPhones are built for, that the planned obsolescence. And I think that's the most irresponsible thing I can ever think of, considering the amount of the carbon footprint that kind of a thing produces. So one is resilience. The other is, to me, regeneration. I think we have to move past the conversations around sustaining to healing, regenerating. I think that's, to me, the 3 things that we should really look for. And just to go back to Mugendi's point, I think a similar principle is stewardship. You are safeguarding the present for the future. And I think, again, there are beautiful concepts, again, in North America, in India, in Korea, in the farming communities, and agricultural communities that I find. But there's always this principle of thinking, what are your unborn generations going to face, and therefore taking a decision today, keeping that in mind. I think that's beautiful. And I think that, to me, is what we must keep in mind. And that's what we are good at in the Global South. That's something that we must revive.
Yes. Can we give our elders a round of applause, please? So as we prepare for your questions, we've also got some reflections that you can just jot down, reflect. After the session, we're going to have a story sharing and story harvesting process, both online and in person. So we just wanted to leave you with these 3 provocations and an invitation about what is a small experiment you can try in the next month to honor Indigenous wisdom, lived experience, or everyday ingenuity in your design work. Can we have some questions? Do we have online, Roxanne? Are the online questions? Not yet. Is a mic? Do we have a mic? Here we go.
Thank you so much. I think this has been such a rich conversation from both of you. My question really reflects around the idea of resilience, right? Particularly when we talk about building for the next 7 generations. I thought that was interesting. Borrowing from our children is quite interesting as well. And I think you problematized planned obsolescence a little bit, right? And I just want to reflect on, for example, the way that in my community, rural community, Mqanduli in the Eastern Cape, the building of houses is built and planned around the idea that this home will be destroyed one day, right? It will become obsolete. And I think there's something around resilience that asks us to move with the times and understand when a solution is solving for something now versus in the future. And I'm wondering, in your consideration of resilience, how do we plan in obsolescence in a way that honors what's happening in the moment and the fact that things change, times change, and there's a new thing that is required and needs to be built outside of that? Thanks.
Lovely.
You go.
Okay, I'll take that. That's a great question, actually. Yeah, I think time is something that we all have to deal with, right? I mean, we are getting obsolete ourselves. At least I feel that every morning. But having said that, I think it's, again, going back to what we were both talking about humility, about listening. I think the other flip side of obsolescence or flip side of resilience is the belief that we are building something that is timeless or our creation is final and cannot be improved. The fundamental principle of a prototype is that it is perishable. It's something we reject. So one of the things I teach in my class is to think that everything you're building will eventually get upgraded, will get thrown away. So what if you build, I mean, you're making the next Ferrari, the Luce just came out, the electric Ferrari. What if it is also something that you will upgrade in the next year? So I think the whole conversation around resilience must be about constantly updating and upgrading, but at the same time, it must be done with the right principles. If it's only commercial interest, it's only about, I work a lot in the fashion industry where fast fashion is a challenge that we face. We have companies that are producing a new line every week. Sure. Every week, 52 lines a year. Can you imagine what happens to the clothes that are not bought from last week? They land up here, in our parts of the world, or in a landfill. So I think, yes, we need to update and upgrade. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that there is an afterlife problem. There is a waste problem. Where is this going? So if we can truly build in circularity, and therefore our regeneration conversations or resilience conversations are around what happens to things when we outgrow them, a building itself. What do we do then? So I think it's about changing the lens. We must update and upgrade. But should we do it because, what are we doing it for is a question, right? To me, that's a question we should ask.
I agree. I think the concept in design thinking of failing forward is,
right.
It grounds us because it means even failure is a learning opportunity. And if one embraces that as an attitude, that we built thinking that the way we did it was right, only for several generations later to break it down. If you look at the way, for example, in North America, particularly in the US, the way people build houses with timber and other materials, they allow for future generations to remodel and reshape the structures, whereas some of our other places we build in brick and then we become prisoners of those structures because of the cost of renovation is prohibitive. So I think if one embraces that attitude of failing forward and being honest enough, authentic enough to let the next generation know this is as best as I could do, but feel free to make it your own and not get too, I've seen people heading into retirement getting very, very possessive of things that they can no longer actually hold on to. So we need to just live lightly on the planet and only carry what we must and leave the rest for future generations to work with.
Yeah.
Yes, question.
Thank you very much. My question picks from where your point lives. I was introduced to a box when I was in high school. And why the teacher brought a physical box is because we could not visualize a 3D structure. We were getting the volume of the inner surface. We were struggling, where is this inner surface? So he actually brought a box, and it took us a bit of time to appreciate. Later, of course, the 3D structure of the box has made sense, and currently you can visualize it. So the box can be a limitation depending on how you look at it. You can think within or outside. On one hand, we talk of limited resources, right? So that limits us to think within the box. In the morning, we had a presentation about thinking outside the box. So I really wanted to hear your perspectives.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I think it takes us back to the why questions. And I think this is what I love most about design thinking. The idea that you start with a what-if mindset. So you're not too possessive of the existing. You're open to the possibility that there's another way of looking at something. So part of the discussion is why a box? You know, what is the problem that we're solving? And the minute you start that, because I also hear of people speaking about thinking outside the box, but there's always reference, and I think Pumla made that comment about speaking of the thing that you wish to negate, yet speaking of it nonetheless. So often it's easier for, especially in design thinking, and this is what I love about lo-fi prototyping, and you've referenced prototyping, that the possibility is that it doesn't exist until we co-create it. And if we start with what the problem is, without, maybe I just need to mention something. Often in our design schools, we are solutions looking for problems. No, really, we already have the solution in our head, and we just try to justify and come up with a convincing problem statement because we already have the solution. But good design thinking, or as it should be practiced, and life itself should be open-ended. It's, why questions should be there. What is it we're trying to solve? The what if. What if we didn't have a box? What would we have? And I think that's where the conversation should go.
Thank you. Last.
Can I just add something to that? Is that, you know, this is the principle of speculative design that we work in, the what-if conversation. And if you're talking about school, you should see it in the corporate world, where not only do we have that confirmation bias that we must build an app. It doesn't matter what the problem is, but you must build the app, okay? And we have had week-long workshops where at the start of day 1, people come into the room with an app in mind, and on end of day 5, they've built that app. And nobody cares about it on next Monday. So anyway, I think this is an important point, going back to humility again. And I'll give you an example. I think I'm in a room full of educators, and this is where being open about different inspirations matter. I was taking a class recently in a college which is up in the mountains in North India, which is known for landslides and big floods every year. And there are these concrete houses that are built. Every year they get washed away, and they build it again. Right in that community is this building, or this principle of architecture called katkuni. Kat is wood, kuni is kuna, corner. So these are integrated houses that use stones and wood, where there are layers and there is gap between the walls that allow for earthquake shaking. And it also offers insulation because this place gets minus 10 degrees centigrade in winter. Now this house is in the same village where this college is. And I asked the kids, the students, sorry, I have this problem. I asked the students, I showed them a picture and I asked them, can you tell me where this is? And somebody told me, oh, this looks like in Japan. And somebody said, oh, this must be in Nepal or Sri Lanka. I said, look, it's 100 meters down that road. It's right there. And my challenge is that even the college or the university has it there, but it isn't inspiring the children or the students to step out of the room to look outside. And I think that, to me, is the future of solving complex problems. And a lot of solutions that we see that we are trying to integrate into our pedagogy is about those seat-of-the-pants wisdom. How did our grandparents solve when they had very little? we've lost that. And how do we get that in? So the box changes. Yes.
We don't have time for any more questions, but I'm going to ask that we continue the conversation when we go back into our studio spaces over tea. There's tea here. Please try my tea. I made it myself.
All right. Okay.
The grapes too. But I would like to ask us, in order to honor the wisdom, if you can just stand up and give them a round of applause as they take their seats. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Yes. I know we have challenges on the app. 1,000 points if you can tell me which baobab this comes from and who said these wise words. Lion King. So the question is, who are you? You see, if I had to say it in my Rafiki accent, you would have known. So what we're going to do is, Annie's going to help us to go to our spaces. We're going to have studio 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we'll divide you up to go. You're going to get a remembering template. So this is just, again, a provocation. You would have been making your notes as you go through. You're going to be sharing your own stories. And then I'm going to ask you to also take your little prototyping envelopes that Diego spoke about. And again, there is a tree that can be made. I mean, you don't have to make a baobab, but if you would like to make a reflection tree also as an artifact, and if this tree could speak, what would it say? So you're welcome to take that up. And then we've got 4 leads, including studio assistants and knowledge harvesters in the spaces. So do we have an idea of where we're all going, Annie?
Just is my mic on? There we go. Maurisa, thank you so much. And I like my tea a bit warmer than what it will be now. We've, as Maurisa pointed out, the studios, I just want to divide it into 4. So let's say if we can have this group, actually probably going to be wiser to start on this side. So if we can have half of this group from it's Brendan, eh? Brendan, and yourself, Sophie, and yourself over there with the beautiful glasses. If you're going to go into studio 2, this group, please don't go yet. This group is going into studio 1. This group, if you can go up into studio 3, and this group, if you can go up into studio 4. Before you go, there's an important announcement, and that is that there was a little bit of a glitch with the app where you book your field visit. So you have until a little bit, I think it's until just after tea time. For tea time, please don't go down into the hospitality section. Come back here. The ushers are going to walk around with something to eat and nibble, because at 3:30, we're going to have Jenny and her GDA team on board. In the meanwhile, we're looking forward to hearing all your stories. So, Studio 2 people, if you can head off that way. Studio 1, Studio 3, and Studio 4. All right, there we have our leaders. Thank you.